Heather McDonald has got the juiciest scoop. When you're on the road, when you're on the go, Juicy Scoop is the show to know. She talks Hollywood tales, her real life Mr. Segment serial data and serial sister. You'll be addicted and addicted fast to the #1 tabloid real life podcast. Listen in, listen up. Woo woo. Heather McDonald, Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. Today's episode might be my favorite. It is the juiciest interview I've ever had the privilege to do because it's one story that I have covered for almost 10 years because November 2nd of 2016, Sherri Papini went missing while she was on a run in her neighborhood in Redding, California. To remind you guys, she was gone for 22 days when she was found on the side of the road where her captor had left her. She was very beaten up. She said 2 women had kidnapped her and kept her captive. And for 6 years, that was the story the people at home believed. The FBI then brought her in one last time and said, we know it's this man named James who you had had a previous relationship with, that you were with. And it went on from there that it came out. It was a hoax. James said that she told him to get her and that she was a friend and that he agreed to physically abuse her and leave her marked to go with the story that she was kidnapped. She went to prison because she lied to the government. And there have been several shows that have been written about her. Her husband and she divorced, Keith. And the latest one is on Max that is Sherri Papini getting caught in a lie, which I've seen all of it. She is here. She answers every question that I asked. And I know there's been other interviews that you may have seen with her, but this is like no other. And I really get into the juicy scoop. So now with my interview with Sherri Papini. This episode of Juicy Scoop is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Whether you're booking for yourself, your partner, your picky teens, or your sleep light mother-in-law, you can find exactly what you're booking for on Booking.com. What I really love about a vacation is at the end of it, you all had a great time because you chose the right place. So if my family can find the perfect stay on Booking.com, anyone can. Find exactly what you're booking for. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Book today on the site or in the app. This episode of Juicy Scoop is sponsored by Honeylove. I absolutely love Honeylove. It snatches my waist, gives me a booty, and is comfortable under these cute little summer outfits I am wearing. Treat yourself to the most comfortable shapewear on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/juicy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off. honeylove.com/juicy. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them Juicy Scoop sent you. Experience the new standard in shapewear with Honeylove. Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I have been dreaming about this since a very long time. I have Sherri Papini here. As you guys know, I've covered her story for a long time, and I gave an intro before you came, so people are up to date on where you are at with everything. You have a 4-part documentary out on Max, which I watched all of it. And also you have a book that is available right now for purchase. Sherri Papini Doesn't Exist, where you really get into a lot that hasn't been covered, though a lot has been covered between 2 different documentaries. I'm just going to go through you've got Sherri Papini, Caught in a Lie. Welcome to Juicy Scoop. Say hello.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to be here. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then also The Perfect Wife, which was on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
And also the Lifetime movie with Jamie King, who I know played you.
She's lovely. She's really lovely.
Which you played you in the Lifetime movie.
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get into all those things. But, what made you decide after you did your time, and you've been out for how long? Because I knew you had 10 months in prison
11.
for lying about to the FBI about who in fact kidnapped you when you were released. And you've been out for how long?
A year.
Just
a little
a
over a
year.
year. Yeah, I got out in October, past October. Just over a
And
year.
then, so you've only been out for a year from doing your 10 months in the prison in Victorville. But so where did it come about where you're like, my husband has done a documentary on Hulu. They did a scripted show on Lifetime. How did this other documentary come, the 4-part one on Max, and that you agreed to do it?
Well, I had no idea HBO was going to pick it up or Warner Brothers was going to pick it up. So I was incredibly touched to be reached to be a subject in the documentary. And when the Hulu documentary began, I was in prison. So I didn't have the opportunity to have a voice then. And as you can see, like we just saw, so many stories have ran about me without me. So there's their narrative, other narratives, so many other ways, twists and turns and spins and salaciousness and clickbait. And all of these stories have ran without me, about me. And, for a number of years, I had this purposeful silence where I was not coming out because I was just too afraid to say that I was having an emotional affair, particularly while I was still married to my ex-husband. And I'm not afraid to say that anymore. So now it's like, I'm not married anymore. I'm free from everything. I'm free to have my voice. I'm free to tell my story. And now it's time, it's time to be able to participate in where I've been exploited. The industry has used my story for so long without me. And I think it's only reasonable for me to start getting involved with the narrative because I do have my side of the story that tracks very simply. And
I mean, so this is what's crazy. So I followed it from hearing about an attractive young blonde mom went for her jog and is missing. So, the first thoughts that people have is it's the husband. He's lying that he came home and that you were missing. And then it was, could it be because she looks young that they thought you were a teenager, which would be a higher commodity to steal and sex traffic? Then there were things in the Reddit worlds saying like there was maybe involved in some type of a drug dealing thing, and their family's involved in drug dealing, and therefore she's being kidnapped as like a ransom thing. And so then when we get to the place of you've been found the day before Thanksgiving, and she looks very different, your husband said, but we're so happy to have her back. And, we later see that you've been bruised and your nose is cut, and your hair is cut, and you've been branded and all these things. What's weird is what was always strange as someone that watched it was they weren't telling us anything. We did see that you said these two Latina looking women were the ones who kidnapped me, which right away did get people thinking this is really strange, just because women in general are not known as kidnappers. And if they were kidnapping you to traffic you, my first thought was, why would they hurt her looks? Why would they cut her blonde hair? Why would you do that? You wouldn't do that. So, but then it was like the FBI, whatever, the news was so quiet about it for so long because obviously they were trying to, find out the truth. And so my first question, so I have so many questions. So like, why didn't you say, that it, did you decide not to just say it was a random guy? You weren't going to say it was this guy that you had at one time. Were you engaged to James?
No.
Oh, that you one time dated him.
That's funny. That's a detail that's in there, but we were never engaged. James
So
and I.
you dated the guy, James,
Mhm.
originally from what age?
It was early 2000s,
So you were how old? Just give me age.
20s.
Oh, early
Sometime,
20s.
yeah.
And you dated him for how long?
Not very long, for maybe a year, a little bit more than a year, something like that.
And so you say in the documentary, you know, Keith is, though you guys look perfect, you're very beautiful. He's very attractive. You weren't having this perfect relationship and he was controlling, and you connect with this old boyfriend because somebody in his family had passed. And so you start having an emotional affair, which people do. Our technology today makes that easy to do, to have a connection, whether you meet them back Facebook or whatever, or you guys got burner phones. When did you think, I'm going to say it's women because sexual stuff happened with him and you didn't want to even point towards a male? Like, why? I'm just thinking, why wouldn't you just say it was some random guy?
Right. That was unacceptable to Keith Papini. So I was incredibly terrified of Keith finding out that it was a male. I mean, you see the evidence that says that I was hiding guys' names under women's names, which demonstrates just the level of fear that I had with Keith. So I just couldn't. I couldn't say that it was a man. It was safer for me to have said women with what I was going to experience at home than it would have been with a man, because Keith was not interested in what happened to my body or what happened during captivity. It's this piece of the entire fabrication of our perfect marriage would fall apart if there was any cheating. Even the emotional affair that I had that was quite innocent. It wasn't like we were sexting each other or inappropriate text messages, but the second that it involved another male or there was even a hint of cheating, my entire home life would have fallen apart.
When did he first show you this like crazy jealous side of himself? Before you were married or after, or did it come get worse with time, or what was it?
It got worse and worse over time. When we experienced that love bombing phase and we experienced the phase where you're getting to know each other, and like he had me on the hook right away, and then we had kids. And when life shifted, when I had lost my job, they AT&T had a merger, and then I was laid off from my job and I became a stay-at-home mom. I was really like an employee of his. Like I went from having status and having shared responsibility into a relationship to really this like underinflated role in our home, and it really significantly shifted the dynamic and the energy and the roles, and that's when everything really started to go very, very wrong.
There's one part that I remember after you were being questioned, you were home, and you were going through the day of what happened. And you said, well, I called Keith to see if he would come home for lunch, meaning sex. Was that true? Were you
Yeah.
still like trying to have sex with him and keep this relationship going? And like, I mean, that to me, that would say this marriage is pretty great. If you're like, hey, come on by for lunch, cutie. Like,
Not when it's more about servitude.
okay.
So when it's a requirement for your husband, it's a completely different atmosphere there. So for me, James was really agitated on November 2nd in 2016. And so the dynamic of the communication was very different that day. He was really pushy. He was really agitated. It frightened me. So for me, if I could get Keith to come home, then I could text James and say, oh, sorry, my husband's home. I can't meet up with you now. So I was trying to get that buffer.
So that morning, James, in the documentary, you say, I had decided like, I got to stop this communication with James.
Yeah.
And why did you decide that? Did you think he was getting weird or what?
It was getting very serious. First of all, Keith caught me, and that's where the burner phones came into play. So Keith had caught me text messaging him, and I was trying to end it.
How did he catch you?
He got a text message. Like he caught a flash of a text message, and it was very clear that it was not a female that I was texting. And so I tried to end things with James, and James just didn't want that which is why the burner phones
What would
came
he
into
say?
effect.
Would you and James only text, or you talk on the phone too?
Occasionally we would talk.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
And what did he say when you're like, this has to end?
Oh, he didn't want that. It was all about like, well, let's find a way to keep talking. Let's find a way to keep engaging. And I guess that was a warning sign that I missed, unfortunately. But I was also so desperate for having a connection with someone at the time. And I really wasn't very well either. I was always externally searching for validation and didn't really have the greater understanding to have internal validation like I do now. But he didn't want it to end. So it was the say, I'll send you a burner phone, which he did, and then keep it even more secret.
Okay. So you said that morning you were going to end, like, walk me through the day. Okay. So Keith goes to work, kids are in their preschool. Then what happens?
James is getting really agitated, and ordinarily he knew that I was concealing the phone from Keith. So time would go by. I would have a while to respond and things like that. And he was just like, every couple of seconds, what are you doing? Where are you at? What are you doing? Because he was already in town. And for me, it was like, this is too much.
And
It's really
when
intense.
he said, I'm coming to town from Costa Mesa, had you said, okay, I'll meet you for lunch or anything?
Yeah.
Oh,
that was the plan.
So you were going to meet him and have like lunch or something, or get together
in a public place with a friend there. There was a whole plan because I knew
who is the friend. Could the friend like say that they knew about it?
Well, unfortunately, the way that I was going to set it up is I wasn't like telling her. I was going to set it up so that James would come in and I'd be like, oh, look, there's my friend James over there, and kind of set it up. She wasn't.
Okay.
I was trying to conceal all the details of that. But there was a whole plan. Like it was supposed to be at Cattleman's on Hilltop Drive in Reading. And I had a whole thing worked out with him because I knew that I was going to be breaking it off and saying goodbye, and that it was going to be the end of everything. But it was going to be in a public place. It was not going to be private.
So that was going to happen. So you ask Keith, do you want to come home for lunch?
Oh, he was so aggressive in the way that he was texting. No, James. Yeah, James was super aggressive. So I just, I had that feeling of like, this is a bit much. And I was starting to feel really uneasy and really scared. And so I was trying to get Keith to come home, because if he came home, then I could really simply text James, Keith is here, and maybe possibly get him to back down a little bit.
And then hope that he just went home and then be done. Okay, so
either went home or delayed it or something. But
yeah. Okay, so then you go for your run.
Mm-hmm. I'm texting him and saying like, I just need a minute. I'm just gonna. I'll let you know when I'm back from my run. Was what the text said.
And what time was the run?
Sometime in the morning. I can't recall the exact time, but it was after I dropped the kids off at daycare. So I presume it's sometime after 9, somewhere around there.
And so then we see in the doc that you get to the place where at this point you're like traumatized by how you got in the car. And so you don't really remember if you went in the car, or if he grabbed you, or if you went willingly thinking you'll go get a coffee. I mean, for me as a viewer, as I watched it, this is what I thought happened. I think she saw him, and again, in like, I'll let him down easy. I thought maybe you did get in the car willingly, whether you remember it or not. And then it was too late.
That's a possibility. So like I say in the documentary and in the book too, either way is reasonable.
Yeah.
So if I could possibly remember, I would absolutely tell you, I wish I did remember. Can it be concluded that I got into the car? Sure. Can it be concluded that I didn't get in the car? Sure. Either one, I can tell you with certainty there was no plan to go to Southern California. I would have never left Reading. That I know for sure. So even if I volunteered to get in the car, or I told him I would get in the car, I would have never left town, ever. I mean, I knew he was there and I knew I was going to see him. So it's reasonable to say that I would willingly get in the car. Not leave, though. Never leave. Never leave Reading.
So now from where he is to Reading, that's like a 9-hour drive or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you say that the next thing you remember is getting out of the car and he had to help you walk. And is that because you think maybe he gave you something, or because like you were so crunched up in the car that your legs just had trouble walking?
No, I've never done drugs. I've never even been drunk before. So I was definitely under the influence of something. What it is, I have no idea. But it was almost like my feet couldn't make contact with the pavement. Like I'd
Okay.
put a foot down and I couldn't feel the pavement underneath me. And it was like my body was like misfiring. Like I just didn't have all of my faculties. And it was really fuzzy.
And then what's the next thing you remember? Waking up in this dark room, or?
No, so he brought me in and he sat me on the couch, and I was just kind of curled up into a ball on the couch. And then there was an exchange between he and I, and like he wanted me to come over and kiss him, and I said no, and I was just really scared, totally terrified. And
Because now you must be thinking, holy fuck, I'm with this guy. There's no way I'm going to be able to explain this to Keith. At this point, there's no way to explain why you're with your ex-boyfriend and when he saw the original text did he know it was James, this guy, or did he just think it was a random guy when he knew that you're texting a dude?
he knew.
He knew it was him.
He's known the entire time. I mean, he even told law enforcement in the very beginning about James, and why law enforcement chose to go to Michigan instead of Southern California.
What would
I'll
happen in
never know.
Michigan?
It was another contact of mine. They went and investigated any contact that they
Oh,
could.
somebody else that you'd kind of flirted with?
Yeah. I wouldn't even say flirting. It was just someone
Was
that I
that
was
the
talking
doctor
to.
or something?
Is
he a doctor?
I don't know.
There was some story that somebody
Yes, it probably-
I read
yeah.
something like, it was because she was, again, talking to somebody and that, didn't go anywhere.
Oh my God, I was so miserable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, and after everything had happened, after I was released from the hotel,
Did they look
or
at
from the hospital.
Wait, did they look at the Michigan doctor guy after you were released or while you were missing?
While I was missing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they could have he was on the list. James was on his list of law enforcement's list of people to look into. They just didn't.
Oh, they didn't.
No.
Okay, so he wanted you to get romantic with him, and now you're like,
No.
I mean,
I was terrified.
Yeah.
Like that was I was planning on meeting with him, sure.
Yeah.
But Southern California, no. I was just really scared.
So then what happens?
So then I say no. And the next thing that I remember is waking up in the bedroom, not fully dressed.
Okay. And in that bedroom, had he already put the wood or the boarding up of the windows?
I don't know if it was there prior to when I woke up, because it's not like he gave me a tour of the house or anything. I don't really remember a whole lot.
But when you woke up, it was there.
There was boards on the windows.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know if he did it afterwards because he felt you had rejected him, or if he had planned to kidnap you.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's
James said he put the boards on the windows because I wanted it dark.
That is the part that I did not believe. Because when I covered, I was like, when we realized it's not these women, it's this guy that she actually knows, and heard all these things that he said, "Oh, I was just being a friend," and she asked me to do all these things. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. The only person that would maybe do this is somebody that I think would be deemed clinically, mentally, disably unintelligent, like the lowest IQ person that might be like, what do I do? And I was like, but wait, this guy has a job.
Or someone that suffers from sexual sadism.
Right. So, but I'm saying if we're to believe him,
right,
that a friend says, will you hit me and make me look kidnapped? And you're like, okay, I'll hit you. And now I'm going to go off to work while you sit in this dark room. I was like, if he's capable of paying for an apartment, house thing, whatever it was, and having a regular job, then he can't be at an IQ of 70.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I was always like, this is so weird. And also that being that you are an attractive person and that you've always been stylish and do your hair and wear cute outfits and keep up, I just didn't believe that if you were faking your own thing, that you would want to destroy your looks. As like a typical vain, we have curling irons, both of us, person, you just wouldn't be, I would not be willing to do this. Just, and I always was like, why are people not seeing the female side of this? And then in watching the doc, I was like, oh, because the main detective, you know, is a guy.
He plays softball with my ex-husband.
Prior to the missing?
And after. They were friends. Yeah.
The detective?
They all play at Big League Dreams together.
Okay, so let's go back. So I also didn't believe that either. That someone that is active like you, that would go running, if you're planning on your own kidnapping, that you, even if you're planning, you'd be like, okay, curtains, something. You would want to have some fresh light in. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense that you would choose to go, let me stay in this dark room by myself for 8 hours. What was his job? Where was he going every day?
I have no idea. I think it had something to do with hockey.
Was he a hockey player at one time? So he played hockey.
Like professional level, yeah.
So the mark on your nose that you have when you come home, which they featured in the cover of the Lifetime movie with Jamie King, he said that you asked him to hurl a hockey puck at your face.
So he says that he held out the hockey stick and I ran into it. Okay. So imagine, if you will, if you don't mind, you're standing over there where those little mints are.
Yeah.
And you're holding a hockey stick out. And I'm starting from maybe where your door is there and I have to run. How many steps do you think I would get in?
Right.
Maybe 2. And I would have to effectively hit myself. So I'd be ramming my face into something, hoping that it hits square on my nose.
And how did you get that?
He smashed it into my face. His lie that he held it up and I ran into it
when
is
did,
absurd.
like, how far into the 22 days did he do that?
Towards the end. So just to talk about the disorientation that I was under. So when we think about solitary confinement, they don't do that with prisoners even in the same way that they used to. So imagine how many times you look at your watch during the day. So it's so disorienting. So it's difficult for me to conclude which day or where it was. I can say that it was towards the end of the 22 days of captivity, but which day it was, it's kind of hard to, like, I had trouble connecting with whether it was morning or night half of the time.
Right, I can imagine. Yeah. So I understand how, like, when I say what day was it, I get that you can't really tell me that, but I'm kind of like in the scope of things. So
it wasn't in the very beginning. The injury to my nose wasn't in the very beginning. It was towards the end.
Because you were fighting, or he was getting pissed at you, or what was happening?
No, it was just there. James has a proclivity for violence, and violent acts gets him off. So particular types of ways that he would harm me. I learned pretty quickly if he could harm me, if he harmed me in certain ways, he would get off, and that would keep him out of me so I wouldn't get pregnant.
Okay.
So there was this difficulty that I had.
So he's like jerking off on you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I didn't understand that from the doc. Now that's clearer. That makes more sense now.
I mean, we have a responsibility in a documentary.
Yeah.
So
now, also that you had lost a lot of weight, and you're normally a very thin person. So what was the deal for the food? He wasn't feeding you, or
I had to earn it.
And how would you earn it? Through the sex stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And so some days you'd just be like, I don't want to eat then?
I mean, it's a difficult choice to choose between starvation and disturbing things. And also that's where he was hiding the drugs most of the time. So it was like I had to make a choice.
Like the drugs to put you out, or oh. And
it's
what was
impossible.
It? Do you know what he was giving you then?
No.
Or like a pill, or what was it?
I've tried to get my records from law enforcement and from the hospital. They won't give them to me. We've tried everything. We've tried to get them during the doc. We tried to get them personally. I've had lawyers try to get them. They won't give me my records. I can remember what they said when I was in the hospital after, like, they They tried to take blood, but I was so dehydrated, nothing came out. So I wasn't able to give them a blood sample. They had a urine sample, and trace drugs were found in it, but they won't give me that report. I heard what they said, but what I've learned in this entire experience is if I don't have backup, I can't say it. So I can tell you what they said, but they won't give me the report of the conclusion.
And so what did they say? Just that you were so dehydrated, or that?
Oh, no, there was drugs that were found in my system.
Oh.
But they won't give me the report.
They won't tell you what it was.
I heard what it was. They said it, but I don't have the proof. So if I tell you, are you even going to believe that? Is
well,
the
I
problem.
am. Just tell me what it was.
It was a combination of morphine, diphenhydramine, prescription strength codeine, and something else that I can't remember. It's some kind of long date rape drug name that I can't.
The GHB thing or something like that?
It was a really long name. I can't remember.
But it's something to put you out.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a whole bunch of a concoction, and it wasn't the same high the entire time. It was different. I experienced different things. Now, whether that was part of starvation or stress or whatever, I don't know. But I know there was different forms of different things that he was giving me as well. Liquid, sometimes things in the food.
And so when did you find out that the world was looking for you? And how did you find out?
He joked about it casually. And then he said that his cousin that was watching me, that lived in the same cul-de-sac, nicknamed me America's Most Wanted. So it was like a joke to them.
This cousin was a man or a woman?
A man.
And what do you mean he'd go to work and the guy would just come in and make sure that you were still like there?
No, there was a time where he did, but no, James was very clear that people were watching me. So I would presume that's part of the brainwashing tactic to let me know that someone was watching me when he was at work. So he would either leave me chained to the wall and make sure that he ensured that I knew that I was being watched as well.
So did you think he was going to kill you?
Every second that I was able to open my eyes, I felt lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I felt like I was fighting just to stay alive every second of every moment.
There is nothing that bums me out and honestly disturbs me than going and grocery shopping, thinking about it, but worse, getting all these groceries and not using them. And that's what I love about Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes the stress out of mealtime by planning a full week of meals tailored to your taste, and it gets smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from, I love Hungry Root because it saved me time. It saved me from going to the grocery store. I didn't waste any food. I loved it, and my family were like impressed with my cooking recipe skills. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box. Plus, get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/juicyscoop and use code JUICYSCOOP. That's hungryroot.com/juicyscoop, code JUICYSCOOP to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/juicyscoop, code JUICYSCOOP. This episode of Juicy Scoop is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Hopefully you get to go on a vacation this summer or many, and you and your loved ones have figured out the destination. But now, where do you stay? You might have a mother-in-law that's very particular. You might have some kids that need that really great pool to get that energy out. That's where Booking.com, Booking.yeah can give you everything that you need. Whether you're booking for yourself, your partner, your picky teens, or your sleep light mother-in-law, you can find exactly what you're booking for on Booking.com. What I really love about a vacation is at the end of it, you all had a great time. Like if you're sitting in the airport waiting to get on a flight and you are like, yeah, that was a really perfect trip. Everyone felt happy. Everybody's needs were met because you chose the right place. So if my family can find the perfect stay on Booking.com, anyone can. Find exactly what you're booking for. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Book today on the site or in the app. Making money moves should be easy, and that's exactly why there's Cash App. It's safe and honestly just way more personalized than other apps out there. No extra hoops to jump through, no extra stress. All the tools are right there to help you cash in. Plus, sending money with Cash App actually really feels safe. They look out for you. So if something seem sketchy or they see that you might be sending money to a potential scammer, they'll warn you and make you think twice before you hit send. It's like having a personalized bodyguard for your cash. That is what I really love. I love that about Cash App because there's a lot going on and you don't want to be scammed or have anyone take your money. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code Juicy Scoop in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. When we get to the day where you convince him finally to let you go, why do you think, like, how did that come about that you could finally drop me off and I'm never going to say anything and we're never going to talk to each other again? Like, what was the agreement then?
Well, I was negotiating every single day trying to find some way to get home. So it was easy for me to say, I'm not going to rat you out. I won't say anything. Just let me go home. And for me, it was, if you let me go, the media will stop because it's getting bigger and it's getting bigger and it's getting bigger. And he continued to say it was getting bigger. And he said that there was some kind of ransom, something or other, and his family had been discussing it. So I presume that there was a lot of pressure, not just from the media, but from his family as well. And anytime we did have any sort of communication, it was, my husband's never going to stop looking for me. He's never going to stop. They're getting close. So I got to use that in a way as a negotiation tactic. And I think it worked for sure.
And so do you remember the day that he's like, okay, get in the car or I'm going to put you in the car?
That was such an odd day because there wasn't necessarily a plan. It was just me pleading and promising that I wasn't going to reveal his identity in order for me to get home. But there wasn't, like, there's a chapter in my book where I discuss what that was like, the in-depth conversation there and leading up to the understanding of, like, I remember him rushing into the room and fastening like hose clamps to my body and going like,
What's
what the
hose?
hell
What do you mean
is he
hose
doing?
clamps?
Oh my God, you're so cute.
What's hose?
So when you do plumbing,
Yeah.
there's a metal clamp and then you tighten it with a
okay,
screwdriver and it
yeah.
tightens a piece of sharp metal. You look like quite a construction worker.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I presume you know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, it was, he did that. And then I'm like, what the hell? And it was super confusing. It was very rushed. And even when he dropped me off, he didn't tell me where I was. He didn't tell me that there was a plan. It was just like, get out of the car. And then he drove off. And for me, it was like, I didn't know what was coming for me. I didn't know whether I was going to survive. I didn't know if he was coming back. I didn't know what was going to happen at the drop off. And I write about that a lot in this chapter because what we don't talk about a whole lot is that day and how he got me into the car. He made me get into a bag and carried me out.
The day that you're coming home.
The day he released me.
Uh-huh.
He put me inside of a bag and carried me out to the car.
What kind of a bag?
Like a hockey bag. Oh, it smelled foul. It was a hockey bag. So I was small enough to fit like a broken marionette in a bag that he put over his shoulder and carried me out to the car.
And then were you just sitting in the back seat the whole time?
I was terrified. I had no idea what was going on. So he put me in the trunk, shoved the bag forward, and then I just thought I was going to stay in the bag. So I just stayed crumpled up in the bag.
In the trunk?
I don't know if it was in the trunk. I don't know. I was in a bag.
But I mean, but then did you eventually get to get out of the bag
so
for the
he
9
stopped,
hours?
and then he readjusted me and put a pillowcase over my head. And then I was like fastened. So when I tried to move in the car, I was like, that hose clamp that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was connected to something. And then he took my arm and zip tied it to the chain. So I was bound all over the place. So all I was doing was staying frozen and quiet in the back seat.
So you wave someone down, right?
Oh my God. I felt like I was on the side of the road for hours. And so when we have I-5, right, we have 2 lanes and then there's that middle lane there. I walked into the middle lane and cars were like going around me. No one had stopped my hair was cut off. I looked like a homeless person. There's a chain hanging out of my
Yeah.
waist. But no one stopped for a really long time.
And who did stop?
A truck driver.
And what did you say? Did you say, I'm Sherri Papini, get me to the hospital? What's the first thing you say when you finally find another human?
I mean, he pulls over and I'm like, come on. No, a truck driver, really? Like
Like,
I
you
go
thought
through
you
all
were-
this
you-
and this is how I die? Come on.
Like another person could
Oh
kill
my
you.
God,
Yeah.
Well, it was this big man, it was this big disheveled man that came out, and I was really scared, and I dropped down and really low and said, please don't hurt me. And he was so kind and was like, I'm not going to hurt you. Here's the phone with the 911 dispatcher. And when he handed me the phone, he was like, are you all right? And I said, no, I've escaped. And then when he was on with the dispatcher, he said, she's escaped her boyfriend. And I'm like, oh God, no, I didn't say that to him at all. But I was and you
He
can
just
hear,
assumed that.
Yeah,
you
just
didn't know
assumed
that
that.
you were an
And
actual,
you hear my voice in that going, no, 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 no. And I was terrified already.
And was that used against you?
Oh, of course it is. Of course it was.
Yeah.
But I didn't say that to him. But you can hear how terrified I am that the truck driver even said that.
And so then when you get to the hospital and you see Keith, your husband, for the first time, what was it like? Because you didn't have a good marriage before, but I would think one of the things that I think is fascinating by the theory that you faked your own kidnapping, couple things. One is, like, one of the reasons I thought it was so fascinating, I'll just tell you. I was going to do it in the first part of the show, but let me tell you. So many years ago, there was this Raiderette that went missing. Sadly, she was murdered. But every night, this was like, there was a show called Hard Copy. It's like kind of like the 90s. So it was 1996. No, 1995 is when she went missing. And every night there was so much news because she was a pretty blonde girl. And all her Raiderette friends, and they were all models in LA, and it was in LA, and they were always on. And I was, at the time, like trying to make it as like an actress comedian. And I was like, and I had this idea, and I was like, God, what if, someone ever faked their thing to just finally get their name out there? Because it was so hard back then to like, you couldn't just go on TikTok and like suddenly have people see you. You had to like beg to get an agent. So I have a movie idea from 1996 that I came across that is about a dark comedy of a person like me who, pretends that she went missing just so that someone will find her headshot and her comedy act. And then the rest of the script, the little script that I wrote was, then her friends, though, do so many like benefits and stuff. They end up getting the deals. And then she's like, how do I get out of this apartment? Like, now what do I do? Like, now everyone's going to hate me, It's so weird that I thought of that in 1996. And then Gone Girl was written. Then your situation happened. And I think there's something about a woman faking that for a number of reasons. One, the attention. Two, that, that your husband that maybe wasn't nice to you, now he'll appreciate me. For the people that believe that it was a hoax, I think they thought a couple things. One, you're pretty and you wanted the attention. Two, that because even it was different, because you came back looking so disheveled and hurt and everything, more than disheveled, obviously. I was like, it's not like the two of them had a little romance and then she came back and was like, I was trapped in a room, whatever. That's why I believe you. And then also I was like, but if you were to believe the thing, there is something about when you're in a relationship with someone that you feel like he doesn't care about me anymore, he doesn't love me. Well, now he'll love me and be appreciative. At any moment when you came back, were you like, maybe this will be, I'm going to lie and say it's these women because I'm scared of him and I'm scared that Keith will get weird that I was with a man, but maybe he'll like be so great that we can be together for a lifetime. What was your thoughts about the relationship with Keith once you were released?
Well, let's go back to the very first moment that he saw me. So
Keith.
Yes. So I'm presuming that you watched the Hulu documentary
Yes.
as well. Okay. So you've heard Keith's side of things and you hear Keith saying, I didn't believe her right off the jump. Like when he first saw me, he didn't believe me and he thought that I was lying. That's his statement.
Which I don't believe, because I remember watching him and he was like, we just need our privacy. She is very, physically hurt. The police, everybody said that in the news, that you were physically extremely
Broken.
hurt, like physically hurt. And so when I saw the Hulu doc, I was like,
well, whatever
that's not what
fits
you
at the
originally
time.
said. Yeah.
whatever benefits him at the time,
Yeah.
he'll use.
Okay.
But so let's go back to that
Yeah.
day, right? So it's not like he was like this loving, gracious husband that was like, oh my God, my wife is found. When I was on the side of the road and I was finally able to convince law enforcement officers to allow me to call my husband, it wasn't like this, oh my God, honey, you hear me doing that? Babe, I'm alive. Oh my God, I want to go home. I don't know where I am. You hear Keith go, where are you? What happened? Flat affect. No love, no nothing. And then when we get to the hospital, it's not like he was like, I need to see my wife. Get me in there. He became an informant and they wired him to interrogate me. And he worked with law enforcement before he even came in to see me. Because you see in his documentary, it's law enforcement's continuing to say, bro, she might have been cheating on you because we have all of these. So he was building up all of this hatred for me and all of this like presumption that I was cheating on him. So he can try and slip it in there, whoever he was, but it's unraveled pretty quickly if you just follow his narrative that constantly changes. Mine's never changed, other than the identity of my kidnapper. But when it comes to me, I've never changed. I've always said that I was held against my will, brutally tortured.
And you described the room exactly as it was.
Yes.
With the chain on the weird different closet, the way it was placed in the closet, the coffee table, everything.
Yes.
So
his story shifts constantly, and it's still shifting constantly.
So do you believe, because the thing is, if you believe the hoax, it's so infuriating to any parent, especially a mom, that you would put people through thinking that, or your kids, someone having to maybe on day 20 say, actually, mommy's in the clouds. Like, do you believe, or did he ever say, I thought you were dead? Did he ever tell the kids, I don't know that mom's coming home? What did they tell the kids?
I wasn't part of that discussion, but what I recall what Keith did is he told Tyler, because Violet was too young to even comprehend what was going on, is that mommy went for a run and got lost.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until years and years later that there was more of a process with the kids. But what Keith initially told Tyler was that I went for a run and I was just lost and that he was looking for me.
Which is an appropriate thing to tell
of course
a child when the mom is missing.
Sure.
But do you think he went to bed at night thinking you were dead? Or do you always think he thought that something else was happening, that you were alive somewhere? Or do you think he did think you had been murdered? I mean, I would think someone's gone for 22 days. It's very rare that they come back alive. There's the young girl, the young Mormon girl that was kidnapped from her bed, that she's like the only one besides you that I've heard, and there's a few. There's some with these girls and they've then, had their captors' children and stuff many years later. But there's very, very few stories that someone is held captive and truly like living somewhere for a longer time. That's why they say, if we don't find you in 48 hours or 72 hours, it's like the chances are so slim. What do you think he thought?
I think as soon as Keith started getting the indication that there was potential cheating, that he was wishing I was dead.
I always think that too about, was he not that concerned if in fact you died? The Scott Peterson case. Scott Peterson, he's in prison for killing his pregnant wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I had said, if you believe he is innocent because he was a cheater, maybe when she went missing, he was a cheater. He didn't care for her. And maybe when she went missing, he wasn't overly concerned because he was kind of like relieved. Like, do you think there was a kind of where he's like, If she's dead, I don't really care because I don't. I mean, do you think, or do you think he was always like, I gotta find the love of my life?
I think two things can be true.
Yeah,
I think Keith went through a lot during that time,
yeah.
and I think that for him, it probably changes pretty often.
And do you think he did? Now, in your documentary, there was a female FBI agent who said, "We advised Keith from doing so many interviews, but he really wanted to."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if it was because, I mean, we knew he'd been cleared. That they cleared him. We knew he wasn't the murderer. So I was like, so then what is the point of doing all these things? What do you think his point was?
I don't know. I can tell you after he continued to be engaged in media. I remember afterwards I was begging him not to do 2020 because I was so broken and needing him and trying to recover. And that was the most important thing to him, was getting on camera.
So wait, what happened? So you came home, and then how soon after he just did a 2020 without you, right?
Like a few days, maybe a week, something like that. It was really soon. Like I was still recovering, like health wise, I was still
And what
unable to even keep
what
food
did he
down.
say? I wish I would have found that and watched that. What did he say in that interview?
That my body was really broken.
Yeah.
And the whole narrative about it being females. And he was just really talking about the gruesome injuries mostly. I can't remember it. It was so long ago.
I think, but
and
that's what I remember too. So,
yeah.
but I still remember like there were so many unanswered questions that we never got, which, and then the other part is if you were really looking for fame, like my made up story from the, 30 years ago, I was like, why don't we hear her doing things? Why isn't she starting a YouTube channel? Why isn't she, and which again, is why I believe you. Because I'm like, if you did this, why did you stay in your house and live such like a weird private life?
6.5 years. I said nothing. 6.5 years.
And so you stayed married for 6.5 years. And did you ever do another job working?
Well, in the middle of that, COVID happened.
Oh, that's right.
So I know.
Yeah.
We were all traumatized by that.
Yeah.
But that means that I was homeschooling my children.
Oh, okay.
And it was the best thing ever. Oh my God, I loved it. I loved homeschooling the kids. I had this studio that I was using for sewing and painting, and it was like a little art studio. And I removed everything and made it into this full classroom. Like you walk in and think that you were on a school campus with whiteboards and chalkboards and a library and desks and everything. It was legit.
So at that time you were living, you liked that time in your life.
Yeah.
What was your day to day with Keith during that time?
Horrible. He had started going back to work, but it was just like 6 long years of interrogation.
He would ask you about the kidnapping?
Every day. Every day. And
you would always say it's those two women? Or did you ever, or what? How would you get through an interrogation every day asking about this?
It was brutal. It was brutal. It was like he kept just trying to catch me every day.
And what would he say? Like, just give me an example of how it would be.
One of the things that he said to me was during when James was there, so during the abduction of 2016, November 2nd, 2016, he said, well, you didn't scream. You didn't try to run. So why would I think that you were kidnapped? That was one of the questions he liked to say all the time.
And how would you respond?
Delicately as possible. It's like one of those, like, someone saying that she's raped and the people say, what was she wearing?
Yeah.
That's how it was with Keith. That's what it was like to be interrogated with him.
You just wanted to like end the conversation as quickly as possible?
I would shut down most of the time. Everything I could do to avoid, I avoided it.
And did you continue to have...
Oh, there was so many moments where I almost broke. So many moments. But for me, based on my personality as well, engaging with me using fear as a tactic to break me, it doesn't work. It really doesn't. If he would have been kind, or if he would have offered safety, or if, for example, his sister Suzanne, I was living with her and she's a therapist. And so she
You
has
were living
all of
with her,
these.
but hold on. But that's after the 6.5 years.
Yeah. But
Okay.
Suzanne was able to say, I don't care what your answer is. I'm offering you unconditional love. And no matter what your answer is, we'll work through it. I don't care if it's all made up. I don't care
She
what it
took
is.
you in after the cops exposed that.
After I was arrested.
Yeah, after it was exposed.
Yeah.
And that's his
And
sister.
that's not what Keith did.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting to, is he was
Right.
never like, I'm so happy you're alive and I'm glad that you're home and no matter what, we'll get through it. It was like, I know you're fucking lying. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. You can say it. Yeah.
I know you're lying. I know that there's something that doesn't fit here. And if I find out, I'm bringing the world down on your head. I'm taking your children. I'm taking everything you own. So don't let me find out. It wasn't ever like, just tell me. It was like threat. And that just made me double down more. It just made me clam up more.
That threat that you said, I'm taking your children. So we see that you, that he, after seeing that you had, a texting emotional affair with somebody, he has a post-nup agreement saying if you're ever caught cheating, you will leave with not one dime and without your kids, which would never be held up because children are not possessions.
They are to Keith.
But was this document really made by an actual attorney, or did he just type it up and you signed it like, let's not fight about the couch, we both want it, let's sign it, whatever? Like, what was it?
It's both. So the thing with postnuptial agreements is generally when you have a prenup or a postnup, you have to have individual lawyers that oversee the document. You don't generally have the same lawyer because it's kind of a conflict of interest.
Right.
I wasn't granted that opportunity. It was the same lawyer. So it was a postnuptial agreement that was made after he had caught me texting another guy, the one from Michigan. And he drew it up. He drafted it. He was in complete control over it. And then when we sat and had it reviewed by the attorney, he was sitting right next to me. So it's not like
And
I
you're
had
just like, fine.
I didn't have the opportunity to object.
Right.
And if we would have had the time and the capacity to defend that more clearly in court, not when I was in prison, it probably would have gotten thrown out. But we didn't have that opportunity. He pushed for the trial as fast as possible. And so he won. He won, and it was taken into evidence. And there's so many problems with it, but we didn't have an opportunity to have an appropriate defense of it.
And
because I was in prison.
Right. So now, were there times where during those 6 years that you were just like, I should say something because James is dangerous. And what if he does this to his next girlfriend?
Exactly.
You thought of that?
I've thought of that this entire time.
Yeah.
But for me, now I'm a lot stronger.
Yeah.
But before I was shell shocked and barely able to make eye contact with people, and I was just broken. But what mattered the most was my babies. I just wanted to be home. I wanted one more day with them. I wanted one more month with them. I just wanted to be home with the kids. And that was my primary focus. It's different now.
Yeah.
And I've been through everything. And now I'm not with Keith. And I'm not afraid to say that I had an emotional affair. I'm not
you
afraid
have nothing to lose now.
No, I'm at rock
Now,
bottom.
the other thing that is where I think people may not believe you is the Hobby Lobby branding tool. That when the report came out, it almost was a little comical that it was bought at Hobby Lobby. Like, it was just weird when, first when we believed that somebody took you and branded you, that was, horrible and strange and weird. But it's still, then when it was, no, she said, go to Hobby Lobby, get this branding thing and do it, which they have the scene in the Lifetime movie.
Oh my God,
do it
so terrible.
because I want it.
I saw that in prison, by the way, when that came out. And
did you watch with other girls?
God bless Jamie King. She was so lovely. She put a thing out on her Instagram. She was so nice and said, obviously, there's more to the story for this poor woman, and let's give her grace or whatever she said. It was so
at the time or just recent?
Yeah, when she was playing me in the movie, she was so gracious and so
that's
kind.
awesome.
But everybody watched it in prison. I mean, like the chairs were lined up out into the hallway to watch it, and I was humiliated. It was absolutely awful because, as you know, it's a Lifetime movie, so it's built off of the headlines, and
Right.
headlines are built to be salacious and for clickbait. And so it's like they were just grasping at everything that they could, and it was horrifying. I mean, for goodness sakes, the opening scene is me being intimate with my ex-husband, and I had to watch that in prison while all the girls are going, woo! And oh my God, it was
And
horrible.
where did you watch it? Were you in the front row or the back? Or
No, actually, I didn't want to watch it. But I had a group of girls that were like, if you don't go, we're dragging you in there and strapping you to the chair you're going.
they were being mean or they were being nice?
Both. It did me no favors in prison, I can tell you that much. So,
And
prison definitely changed me a bit.
how did it? Wait, get back to the branding, and then I want to talk about prison.
There's a lot. Sorry.
So when you in the documentary go, I did these crafty things, and I had a branding thing from Hobby Lobby, and we would talk about how I was making these little wood coasters with like initials in them or whatever. So did that give him the idea like, ooh, I'm into S&M, I'm going to get this branding stuff for when we get together? Or do you think he bought it midway through your time there? Like, where in the 22 days to your best ability did he brand you with that Hobby Lobby brander?
I would say it was in the middle, because my arm happened first. So James is fascinated by the process of tattooing. So it was more about this process that he was kind of obsessed with, where skin would keloid and kind of look similar to a tattoo. So I would presume, since we'd been talking on the phone and I had talked about the woodcrafting that I had done, that he got the idea of it. And I'm a country girl. You know, we had talked about things like that as well, branding. And it's just a normal everyday part of living when you live in the country and things like that, which is what I'm around. But I can recall very clearly we had conversations about a gift that I was making my husband at the time, and that there was letters associated with it and things like that. But to conclude that that's why it was there and why I wanted it, it's almost like saying somebody was murdered with a bat, so now we're going to go and arrest every baseball player. You know, I didn't ask to be branded, and I didn't ask for him to use the instrument from Hobby Lobby, but it is something that had came up in conversation before.
So then we get to the day of the viral video. They call you in again to the interrogation room with your husband. Oh, we just have a couple more questions. Going in that day, were you scared at all? Did you sense that it was because they'd been checking in with you over the years, asking other questions, right? Or had a whole chunk of time gone where you haven't heard boo?
They touched in. No, it was. I mean, they were building their investigation for years.
And did you think they knew at that time, or were you just like, oh, they're just going to ask me more questions?
I was totally blindsided.
You were blindsided.
Yeah.
And what happened immediately after that? We see that Keith is like, I'm done or whatever, gets up or he leaves. And you're like, no, it's James. James, what? Like, what happened right after that?
I had to get in the car and go home with him, which was absolutely terrifying. And then he put my belongings in trash bags and kicked me out.
That day?
Mm-hmm.
And where did you go that night?
My parents came and picked me up, and I went to...
And at that point, did you have to break the news to your parents that this whole time it was James? And
no, I wasn't arrested yet. They just...
But you didn't...
After that interrogation...
But did you tell your parents, pick me up, Keith and I are done, but you didn't tell them why?
No. So after that last interrogation, nearly a year went by before I was arrested. So a lot more time had passed after that interrogation. It wasn't like I had that interrogation and immediately after that I was arrested. Nearly a year had gone by. So when I called mom and dad, it was Keith and I had a really big fight. My stuff's in trash bags and I need to get out of here. And then I went to his Aunt Pam's house until we could figure out what was happening and where we would go from there.
So we see in the documentary that the detective We hear the audio from the detective going to the Costa Mesa house where you were there for 22 days and saying to James, we know you guys were together. And I clearly thought the detective was letting him know, just say what we want you to say. You can't be arrested for kidnapping if someone made you do it. And again, I'm like, what kind of person goes along with, hey, I hate my husband so much. Can you pick me up and then beat the shit out of me? I don't want to, but I will. Like that's why I was like, yes, I totally see why this is. And it's just strange that this guy that, you said he kind of came from a troubled background with his parents in and out of prison or drugs and stuff. Why they were so set to not believe you, and immediately, like, it sounded like they kind of gave him this out. Just say that she asked you to pick you up. And he goes, she's a friend, just a friend. I'm just trying to help her out. And that's the part. Like, if you didn't come back physically beat the fuck up, then it would be hard for as many people to believe your story now. That's what I personally think as someone who's followed it and a viewer. That's why I do. I'm like, who is this guy? And what's he doing now? He lives in Phoenix, living off the 89-year-old grandfather. I'm like, yeah, you're a loser. You're a weirdo. You're a loser or a weirdo. And like,
completely informal investigation on James. I mean, they'd already had years of building a case against me, but we also have to remember there was missteps by law enforcement. So by having me fall on my sword and taking all of the accountability, it releases the accountability of anyone else involved. So if they build a strong enough case against me and they manipulate the evidence enough that it builds a strong enough case against me and they charge me for moral turpitude, meaning my testimony is no longer valid, then it eliminates it coming back and biting them in the ass later. Because law enforcement knew that James existed and they knew that we were conversing in the very beginning. And that's a pretty big misstep on law enforcement's part. And then they have this informal investigation. They don't build an investigation on their lead suspect potentially, and they close the case as fast as possible. That presumes some issues there. Also leading or coercing a confession from a suspect.
And did they give him a deal, like, say this and you're going to sign this thing. We'll never, like, just like when someone turns on a co-conspirator for a murder. Say who hired you or whatever. Say this, and then we won't prosecute you too. Right. Is that what they did? Did they give him something and say this confession and we'll never come after you again?
What's interesting about that is we have the interrogation tapes, right, where they interview James, and a portion of it is cut out. So it pauses and we see a length of time go by and then it continues. We'll never know what was said and we'll never know what was offered because it pauses and a length of time goes by. So I have no idea. What I do know is James's record is not the same. So the records that are out there are not the same that they were.
You mean he had some run-ins with the law that is now gone?
I've picked him up from jail when we were together, and somehow he just has a clean record now. I really don't know the details of that. I don't know what's happened, but I do know that James has had trouble with law enforcement.
Been arrested or whatever.
Yeah. And what his charges are and what what happened, in his life from when we broke up. It's kind of like someone started as an amateur and then they get to professional level. Whatever happened in those years that he and I weren't talking, something happened to make him this sicker, darker individual. And whatever his record is or anything that happened in the meantime, I don't know. I don't know what they gave him. I just know based on the interrogation tapes, they gave him a way out and they gave him they led him through it. That's definitely what it seems like.
So you talk to attorneys, you have attorneys, and how did you come to the conclusion that the best thing for you and your family is to take the plea, which is 18 months, but you got out in 10, because there's no way out of this, because technically you lied to the government. And even if how did you realize that was your only choice?
Well, when I started talking to my defense attorney and we discussed what it would be like to go to a trial, first of all, I had no money. So, it wasn't really an option for me. And it's the FBI. It's not like it was a trial, James Reyes versus Sherri Papini. It was Sherri Papini versus the United States federal government. And that means they have endless resources to draw out a trial and to drain me of my resources, to drain me of my most precious resource, which is time with my children. And it was going to be something that was going to go on and on and on and on. Because what do they care? They don't care if a trial lasts forever. And at the end of that trial, however long that it would be, however expensive it would be, I still lied. So a
Yeah.
sentence would be passed regardless. And I knew that it was
Right.
wrong. And I wanted to demonstrate my remorse and my accountability. First and foremost, I knew that keeping James a secret was wrong. And so that was the best way that I could demonstrate remorse, take my accountability, and deal with the situation at hand without going through a lengthy trial, because it wouldn't be justice. It wouldn't be James is going to go to jail at the end of it because he's found guilty. It's the United States federal government.
Yeah.
I didn't stand it. Didn't have a chance. Didn't have a shot.
And so you agree to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what is prison? What is it like? Because I'm like fascinated, like how, when you're the pretty white girl who's also famous, how do you survive? Like if I went in, I would just like start imitating the guards or something, just try to like let them know I'm funny, because clearly like I would be difficult. How did you make
I think you do
friends?
fine in prison. You would like run the entire prison by the time you got out there.
No,
I
I
mean,
don't.
like honestly, but no.
I'm like, how like off the bat were women like mean and scary, or was it, because what kind of criminals were they? Just everything, or were you with murderers, or were it like white collar? What was it?
It's kind of a melting pot. So there's a
Okay.
wide variety of different charges in there. And it's the level of security, right? So there's a couple of different ways to make up the population of Victorville Federal Prison Camp. That's the lowest amount of security. So we have the prison camp, medium security, maximum security, and that is based on the level of your crime, right?
So you were in the camp?
I was in the camp,
Okay.
which is the lowest level of security. So it's like fraud and lying to a federal officer, or we have other inmates that have spent a really long time incarcerated and have spent enough time that they've gotten their points lower so they qualify for being at a camp. So there was people in there that were child molesters. There were people in there that aggravated assault and things like that. There was quite a few people, but they'd been incarcerated for 10, 20 years at that point. So they qualified for being at a camp. So it
And
was a lot of different.
were you in a cell with another person? Like, what was your sleeping situation?
It was kind of like the inside of a Costco. So
Uh-huh.
it was very bare, open concept, open warehouse almost, with these cement barricades and two metal bunks. And so it was a very small cell without a door and very open concept. Like when you're on the top bunk, the bed is a little bit higher than where the cement is. So everyone can see you as well as you can see everyone else. There was not a whole lot of privacy. And then it's kind of like open concept locker room, bathroom style.
Getting back to, obviously you regret saying it was two women, but I'm guessing your biggest regret is that you gave them an ethnicity. That must have.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wish that I could apologize until the end of time. So sorry. And I wish that, it was something that I had more control over. Obviously, the race issue has been around for a long time and it didn't help. And I deeply regret that. It was just to try and provide the littlest fragment of James's identity that I could. It really had nothing to do about trying.
Because you said in just giving the sketch artist something, you focused on two women in his life, his mom and like what? Who was the other girl? A cousin or something?
Cousin's wife.
And But then why give them the mask? Why not give them a whole face?
I was too scared.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to get them there, but I froze. By the time we got to that part in the sketch, which by the way, I did not want to do.
Right.
And they say that like I was enthusiastic to do the sketch. I didn't. And it took so long to do the sketch because I refused to participate in it for so long. Keith Papini wanted me to do the sketch and he pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. Like you hear the officer say he was very pushy and he just kept getting in the way. So he really tried to control the investigation from day one. But I didn't want to do the sketch. I really didn't. So it was like if I could cover from here down, then I could at least satisfy that, like, well, they didn't have everything. So even if he sees it, clearly James would see that I'm trying to sketch his mom, but it's not incredibly clear. It was just a really hard choice.
And then when he does the Hulu doc, he goes this complete other route, saying basically that you were doing Munchausen's by proxy, that you were making your kids sick because he said you'd soak a thing of alcohol and like put that near their body. And I have to tell you, when I saw the Hulu doc, I was like, wow, this is weird. Like, oh my God, because I'm obsessed with like Munchausen's by proxy too. But the way you explained it in your doc made a lot of sense because you have sensitive skin and have gotten rashes and they had sensitive skin. So instead of doing a Vicks rub, you would do like a peppermint, like essential oils or something, and put it on a cloth so that the breathing could be better. Why do you think he went from, do you think he knew that you were just doing an innocent essential oils thing? Or do you think he then was putting a story together for himself to be so cruel?
In my opinion, I think Keith Papini does not want anyone to know who he really is. And so the more that attention you can get spent on villainizing me, the less you look at him. And he's very invested in his image. Unfortunately, in family law, what we see a lot is when you have a toxic ex, false allegation claims are made. It's pretty common, which is horrifying, but it's pretty common. Unfortunately, this lie that he's concocted, it doesn't even make sense. You can't make somebody sick from inhaling rubbing alcohol. It's similar to like smelling salts, for example. So the lie that he concocts doesn't even hold up. It dissolves pretty quickly. I would never harm my children, ever. I went to extreme lengths to do natural things with them. I've never tried to make them sick. There's no hospital visits or anything that demonstrates that I would ever harm my children. And as you see in the other documentary, it's concluded as unfounded. And the lengths that he went through to accuse my daughter is horrifying. It's heartbreaking.
To have your daughter say it, you mean?
To use her in the way that he has.
And the
I
doc.
would never hurt my kids, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the one weapon that he has. And it ruined everything. When that allegation came out, it was like they went through it and then they're like, oh, well, we've lost it. She's hurt her kids. You know, he knew what it was going to do. He knew the ramifications of it. And what's most valuable and important to him, in my opinion, is making me look as bad as possible. So you stop looking at him and he stops gaining any culpability in his behavior that he did. But that act in and of itself is pretty terrible. It's
well, I mean,
terrible.
yeah, I mean, that's why it's the,
I'm
like
sorry.
you said, no, I'm
the minute you talk about my kids, I fall apart.
But I mean, you know, you're right. It's the ultimate thing that happens in toxic divorces. And, you know, there are women that say the ultimate lie and say that the father is sexually abusing the kids and it's not true. And, you know, and, you know, in those cases, I know friends that I've known one person that believes that, you know, thought there could be something, but her attorney's like, if you say it and it's not true, then the courts are so mad at you for accusing of sexual abuse that then you will lose. Yeah. which it's like, what are you supposed to do? But, so he says this on the dock, which then adds to the narrative. Summer is here, and you know what that means. It's time for breezy dresses, bold colors, and all the effortlessly cool looks you've been waiting to wear. Let's talk about what's underneath, because the right shapewear can really make the difference. Honey Love's targeted compression smooths and shapes exactly where you want it, and you get such great confidence. But the most important thing is that Honey Love is comfortable. Honey Love has your back, your curves, and your comfort covered all season long. I absolutely love Honey Love. It snatches my waist, gives me a booty, and is comfortable under these cute little summer outfits I am wearing. Treat yourself to the most comfortable shapewear on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/juicy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off. honeylove.com/juicy. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them Juicy Scoop sent you. Experience the new standard in shapewear with Honey Love. I'm sure you guys are creative and sometimes get these great ideas. And you wonder, hey, can AI build a website for me for this? Well, turns out it can. At Wix.com, you can answer a few questions and get a beautiful business-ready site in minutes. And this is not just skim the surface type AI. This tech goes deep, all the way from generating unique visuals to an AI agent setting up a marketing campaign for you. Wix puts incredible website creation at your fingertips. With their AI site builder, you answer a few questions and get a personalized, business-ready site fast. Wix has been pioneering in website tech for almost 20 years. These guys seriously understand web design and what it takes to run your own business. Ready to create your own website? Go to Wix.com. That's Wix.com to start building your website today. Thanks, Wix, for sponsoring Juicy Scoop. So, you touch a little bit on the fact that you were sexually molested as a child by a family person or someone within your family. And there were experts that spoke about that. And I know that is a result of a child being traumatized is, doing what you did, disassociation, pleasing. But also there have been, there is a pattern sometimes where children then do go on to lie, to not tell the truth. Do you cover that like in the book about how that has happened? Because were there other things were there other things that prior to this that people could say you've lied about, you got caught in a lie that might be a result of you living from this trauma?
Well, I think that, frankly, there's theories out there, sure. And there's a lot of people, we all live our lives. We have enemies. There are people I may not have been kind to back in the day. There are people that I had tumultuous relationships with. You have to have evidence, though, to back up what you're saying. So there is yet to be anything where someone has come out with something like that, where there's like a excessive amount of evidence to back up what they're saying. Unfortunately, because my words don't hold as much weight, it's even more difficult for me to back up anything that I say from here on out.
Well, it's also a pattern of when you've been abused as a child, you often do, unfortunately, end up with abusive partners, which that seems to be a pattern of yours. I mean, you
I have a bad picker.
You left like, someone, not physically, but not a great husband, and then went to the worst. And so, like in doing your therapy and stuff, so you get into that in the book, a little explaining and what
the entire book. What's really cool about the book is you watch this progression. Like I go into depth about the progression of early childhood up until now, the things that I've learned, the progress that I've made, the journey of self-discovery where things have unfolded. And it's just steeped in this like mental health language in there. And it's been really exceptionally extraordinary to be able to understand myself and figure out where I came from and why I behave this way and what defense structures I have and what caused where I am, and all it's all from start to finish.
Now, can we talk about a little bit? So you get out of prison, you go, you have like a little halfway house situation. What was that like?
The halfway house was horrible. I would have rather spent my entire time incarceration in prison.
Really?
Oh my
Why?
God. Well, the halfway house was in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
The day that I arrived, the following morning, it was surrounded by police officers because there was a dead body down the street in front of the halfway house. We weren't allowed to go outside anymore because someone had been stabbed in the front and shot in the back. So it wasn't in the best part of town, one would say. There wasn't really a whole lot of time that would go by without hearing sirens as well. And it was a mixture of men and women. So it was both men and women. There was 74 men and 4 women in the halfway house with doors that did not
So
lock.
it's like a dormitory then, not a
Mhm.
house. Okay.
Mhm.
I was
Um,
imagining like a 5-bedroom house that they
No.
had converted to a facility. Oh.
It was like a compound, and it was disgusting. Disgusting. I mean, I was like trying to wash my clothes in a garbage can upstairs and fighting the cockroaches as well. And
Ugh.
there was even a rat issue.
And why did you have to do
situation.
that at all? Like, why? Is that was just part of
It's
the.
just part of the way that the Bureau of Prisons
Okay.
operate. And for me, I was so enthusiastic to get out of prison that I was like, yay, a halfway house. And I had no idea what it was like. I wish that I could have gone back, but it was
And how long did you have to be
horrible.
there?
6 weeks, about 6 weeks.
And then you leave there, and then you go where, to your mom's?
To my mom and dad's.
Okay. And you're still close to your sister-in-law.
Mhm.
And so then is that when you start with the therapist that we see in Hulu? I mean, sorry, not Hulu. In your doc, the Max docs.
No, I'd actually started seeing him. So this is an interesting, I don't think I've ever talked about this part. This is an interesting part of the story. So I was seeing a previous therapist for a really long time. I got in a reasonable amount of EMDR, which is fantastic.
And that stands for?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So they utilize the left brain and the right brain by using like a wand or something like that to activate left brain and right brain to calm the sympathetic nervous system in relation to PTSD. It's a phenomenal treatment, and it helped so much when it came to my treatment. The FBI was starting to build their case against me, so the funding for witness something or other had got cut off. So I wasn't able to continue with that therapist because I couldn't pay her. Keith had complete control of the finances, and he wouldn't allow me to go to therapy anymore. And I had lost her, and I was just lost. Like, I was desperate and lost, and she was like the one place I could go where Keith wasn't tracking me or watching me or had this freedom. And I was starting to really break down. And Suzanne, his sister, said, I have this therapist. Why don't you meet him on Zoom and see what you think? He takes pro bono cases on occasion. And why don't we meet with him together? So we'll have a couple of Zoom sessions where you can meet Dr. Diggs and you can start therapy with him. I was still married to Keith at the time. It was prior to my arrest. And I had started seeing Dr. Diggs secretly because unless this therapist had been previously vetted by Keith, he wasn't allowed. And he hadn't. Keith doesn't particularly care for Suzanne.
His sister.
Yes, because she was someone that, well, actually, I don't want to speak for why he likes her and why he doesn't. I just know Suzanne was the one family member who, if Keith did something shitty to me or he was rude to me, she'd stick up for me. And she'd go, no, don't do that. That's
Like
not
if you were at an event or something, or
Mm-hmm. There was a long time ago, while we were married, Suzanne had sent Keith an email saying, I've picked up on some really bad behavior, and Sherri's told me about some things. And I'd like to talk about that because you're going down a really dangerous road, and I don't like what I see, but I love you and I'm here for you. So can we talk about
what's
it?
their age difference?
A couple of years.
Oh, close.
I think
Okay.
3 years.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
close. Yeah.
And he ghosted her and started cutting communication. And then suddenly I wasn't allowed to go spend the night at Suzanne's house anymore. And I wasn't allowed to see Suzanne. And there was this alienation that happened. between her and I. And then I reached out to Suzanne because I hadn't seen my therapist in a while, and I really needed that. And so she connected me with Dr. Diggs. And in fact, there was a time, it was like when maybe we had like a couple months of therapy sessions. So we'd met with each other maybe 3 or 4 times. And it was in the studio. So I would have these Zoom sessions, right? And I closed the sliding glass door and I locked it because we were about to start talking about some of the more sexual issues that I was suffering. And Keith tried the door and it was locked. And so he's outside the door now, banging on the door, screaming at me through the door, not knowing that the laptop is open. And I have a doctor and his sister on the other end while he's banging down the door and screaming at me. Now, Dr. Diggs doesn't treat Keith, so he can't talk about it. But I had 2 witnesses of Keith banging down the door and screaming at me just because the door was locked, because I didn't want the kids to walk in on that conversation.
Right.
And then he found out what I was doing and tried to shut it down immediately and said that, this is my sister and this is Diggs, and I don't get to be present during the therapy session, so you absolutely cannot see him. So I just secretly see Dr. Diggs as well.
And when you were in prison, was there any kind of therapy they offered you there?
Not particularly. They're not. You would think that they're trying to rehabilitate to try and lower the rate of recidivism, so reoffending, but no, not really. The therapy that I got was getting engaged with some very incredible women, sharing stories and having moments of deep vulnerability and really experiencing some deep relationships with some really incredible women in there.
You keep in touch with some of them?
Within the parameters of my current probation? Yeah.
Okay.
Not really, but
Yeah. Well, that's good.
yeah.
What was the food like?
Oh my gosh, disgusting. So I had a job. When you go to prison, you have to work. And when I say work, I mean it's hard labor and you get 12 cents an hour to do it. And you're working 12-hour days in the heat in the desert of Victorville. And so I had this job for a short period of time at the food service warehouse. So on the compound, we have maximum security prison. So murderers and rapists and child molesters in the men's compound. We'd hear the rubber bullets flying and the
The men's was
riots,
near
and
you?
I could see it from the track.
Oh.
Yeah, you
that's
could see them.
terrifying.
Oh, it was horrifying. And like I said, you can hear them from the compound. And then we had 2 medium security locations that were on the same compound as well. So at the food service warehouse, the females took care of it. The prison camp, it's all run by inmates. There's no staff there. There's guards that do the count, but we run the entire facility. So we're at the food service warehouse, which means I'm handling the food and building the pallets. I'm lifting these huge 50-pound bags and trying to distribute it to all the men's facilities as well. And I noticed on the food, it's like not just a couple weeks expired, it's like years expired. And then there's other boxes that say not for human consumption. So we're like eating the meat that would be made into like dog food. Or I'd watch these other women drive a forklift into a bag and all the frozen meat would come out and then they just stuff it back in and wrap it with tape. Or like there was a time where we get the shredded pork, right?
Yeah.
And there was like a nipple, like a full cow or pig. Oh, it's
so
bad.
would you
It's
just
so bad.
would you
It's
just
so bad.
luckily like your parents would just give you the money on the books and you just have ramen, or what did you have? Like what could you get from the little concessions?
Yeah, prison's expensive because if you don't have commissary, if you're just indigent, you have nothing.
Right.
Because you have to buy shampoo and you have to buy toothpaste and you have to buy a brush and all of these, like you have to buy shower shoes. They don't just give them to you.
Yeah.
The Federal Bureau of Prisons is a business and they make a lot off of the inmates that are there. So it's like you'd get out and you'd go to a grocery store, and how much do you think you spend on toothpaste, for example?
For a big tube, I guess, whatever, $3.99.
Okay. It's probably about $12 in prison. So,
Wow.
and you have no other options,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had friends and family that were assisting putting money on my commissary.
Did
each
you have
month
guys
and-
reaching out and wanting to be your
I
boyfriend?
got the weirdest mail. I have an entire box full of the weirdest mail that I got in prison. I also got a lot of support too. There were a lot of people that were like, clearly, there's more to the story.
Because at this point, we hadn't ever heard you say,
Right.
I'm not lying.
Right.
You went to prison us thinking, because we didn't really hear you go, no, I didn't want this. We never heard it until now. So then we hear the promotion for the Mac show, and it's like, oh my God, now she says, yes, it was him, but I was kidnapped by him, by James. And so when they reach out to you, you decide to do it. And are you pleased with the result? Like when you watched it back, obviously you did a lot of more footage that didn't make it. So are you happy with what the story, how they placed the story, or do you wish they would have done it differently?
It was a complicated process. So in the documentary, you watch me go from like, I mean, obviously you see that it's taken a year. You watch my hair grow out and you watch my body change a little bit because it took an entire year to film the documentary. And you kind of watch me go from being poised and demure and fairly quiet to like really, and so irritated and agitated. And because again, my director was lovely. She did an amazing job and she was absolutely incredible, but we were not friends. You know, there was no comfort there. It was, we're pushing to see how honest she is. And they did. They pushed. It was grueling. It was incredibly grueling. And I gave them full access to everything for just that point and gave them everything that I had in every capacity. But it really is. It's grueling to go through, similar to this process, but interview after interview after interview after stunt after thing. I mean, it was incredibly
And you
grueling.
did a lie detector test during that time.
I did.
I can't remember what was the results. That you passed it or what happened?
I think that the docuseries demonstrates a really stark difference between what we hear from law enforcement, which is that James Reyes passed his polygraph and they say with flying colors, or he passed every question, for example. And what you see in my polygraph is that it shows that there's a result that was a little bit sticky, right? Because I experienced quite a lot of shame. What that shows is my body has a response to a lie, or not even necessarily a lie, but when you bring up a subject, my body is showing a response, which demonstrates I'm not a sociopath. And it demonstrates that there is still quite a lot of shame or remorse or something in there. To say that someone has passed their polygraph with flying colors, with absolutely no showing any lie or expression in any way, kind of leads one to believe that there's not something right up there, because taking a polygraph is exceptionally difficult.
Yeah.
It's a very
which is
grueling
why it's
process.
not used, in
Right.
court.
Right.
So you get out, you leave the halfway house, and I did see that you had a boyfriend. Daily Mail picked it up, but you're no longer with him, right?
No.
And can you speak on that? Like did it end amicably, or what's going on? Because I saw you were in court about something about the housing situation.
That is a whole sad situation that's going on. So, unfortunately, we did not work out for a number of reasons. And I haven't really spoken about that relationship much. But in my opinion, there's a lot that he needs to work on with himself. And the ending of our relationship was really unfortunate. Right now, we're trying to come to some kind of a settlement and agreement for the location that I'm staying in. And it's wrapped up with a lot of immature behaviors and a lot of unfortunate circumstances surrounding it. And I'm trying so hard to be as amicable as possible and as kind as possible. And it's really hard when you have someone who's trying to hurt you at every turn and trying to harm you at every turn. And it ended really badly. It ended with a lot of harmful things. I mean, there was a lot of sneaky stalking behavior and a lot of control and a lot of things that I didn't expect. I've been through quite a lot of abuse, but they come in so many different forms. And this passive aggressive, covert abuse, I'm so used to the overt abuse. I really didn't see it coming. And I'm trying the best that I can to get through this as quietly as possible, but it's just not happening anymore.
Yeah. And, so are you dating anyone now?
Right now, my primary focus is Tyler and Violet.
Yeah.
That's where my heart is right now. It's difficult to really have any time for that because I started getting engaged in dipping my toe in that, and it's clear that I really need to focus on Ty and Vi and on moving forward with my life.
And is Keith with anyone?
I have no idea.
Oh.
I have no idea.
And so, we see in the documentary, we wish you the best with regaining, 50-50 custody.
I'm hopeful.
I mean, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it should be for everybody, unless you really are an abusive parent, So I don't know why that's not happening for you, but I hope it
just
works
takes
out.
time. Yeah, it just takes time. We have to have a trial to have the ruling, and we haven't had that yet. So it's just gone on and on and on and on. And he's delayed. He's really good at delaying in the court. And he's also really good at not following court orders.
And do you feel that the documentary, like getting your story out, going and doing some press, I would think it would help your case. Do you think it'll help?
You see,
sharing your story.
You see in the Hulu documentary, right, that my kids are completely exploited.
In the one that he did.
Yeah, it's like borderline. In my opinion, it's borderline child abuse, how much they were exploited. It's absurd how much they were in the documentary. And when I had gone to the director when they were interested in my piece, I said, I absolutely will not participate in any way if you have my children in here. I do not want my children in here. So anything that you have has to be blurred. They have to be muted. I do not want my children in here in any way. I want to protect them as much as possible because they just got horrendously exploited in the last documentary. And that was really valuable to me and really important.
When they came to you, the Max Doc people, did they know what your story was, what your truth was? Because like I said, we just thought that you admitted to the lie. It didn't make a lot of sense, but we're like, whatever. Obviously, she's crazy. And you know what I mean? So did they get word from anybody else? Like, you should do something on Sherri Papini because her story is great. Like, how did they know that there was so much more to this?
Well, the director has done quite a few interviews, and I love so much what she says. She says, I made the story that I found. And so when we began the documentary, it's not mine, it's theirs. I was just a subject. And so she pushed me she was trying the whole time to catch me in a lie and to see what she could find. And she literally made the story that she found. There's bits and pieces in it that are still messy, and there's.
The only part that I thought,
but she didn't know
I thought it was
what she was going to find.
Not a big gotcha, is when you said, I just tried to make those two women look like his mom and the cousin's wife, whatever, and she's like, well, do you know that the mom is not Mexican? She's English, and you're like, oh, she is. Yeah. I thought that was pretty honest. Like, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, I was like, yeah. But I really feel like there was no other moment, really. I don't think there was like, I don't know. But I could see that's what makes it compelling. If it was too much, because honestly, when it came out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of reminds me of Casey Anthony then coming out and telling her story, which was a whole nother story. Like, it was not only wasn't me, but it was this thing with my dad. And it was like a whole nother story. And I was like, so is everybody just going to have documentaries where it's like a whole nother story, like 5 years later? And so in watching yours, I didn't feel like it was that at all.
No.
And had you ever watched Gone Girl or read the book?
Mm-mm. No, I have now.
Okay,
but everybody calls me Gone Girl.
So when they were saying it, you were like, "What is this?"
I watched it and was like, "Oh my God, she killed somebody!"
Yeah,
like That's
She
it.
kills the guy in the
Right. And the only person in this entire story that got hurt was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to be compared to the Gone Girl story.
Right.
Yeah, that's sad. That's really sad.
Oh, now if we have to cut this out, we have to cut it out. But were you compensated for the doc?
No, subjects aren't paid.
Oh. You know, it's interesting that you say that because I've been on docs and I never asked to be paid. Because that's the way it is. If I did an ABC News Nightline thing as a, commentator, I didn't get paid. But I do know for certain docs, people do get paid. Because I've done like entertainment docs about things and then someone will go, what did they pay you? And I'm like, I didn't ask.
Well,
And
okay.
that's why I was wondering if you did.
They paid for my dinner.
Right.
Like, they'd pay for my food and like my travel and stuff
Well,
like that.
I'm glad that people know that.
Yeah.
I'm almost.
And the director says that
I'm literally
too.
kind of.
They
I'm
asked
sad
her.
because I'm like, you should. That's why everyone needs to buy the book because you should make some money from this thing.
Thank you.
You're-
And the movie and the funds that are being made from the book are going to the government. I owe $300,000 in restitution, and there's a contract with the government.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's my hope. My hope is to pay my restitution. I'm enthusiastic about doing it as well.
Well, maybe there'll be another movie made. Then you'll make your money and more.
The industry
put it
has
out
made
there.
millions of dollars.
It's time that
off
we
of
do
me.
yours acted out. They can do this scene. I'll play myself. You have a very colorful divorce attorney.
I love
Not your
Chase.
typical attorney types.
She's so fantastic.
The father-daughter like team. I was like, it really kind of made the doc pop because you're like, what? Like, I thought that, she seemed like a badass.
Mhm.
But when you think of an attorney, you don't think of someone with like crazy blonde hair, tatted up arm, but she was great.
She's incredible. Chase has for sure been a driving force for me because when I start losing it and I start just getting so hopeless, she reminds me that there's so many people that support me in my community. And there's so many people that sure are curious about it and have a lot of questions, but that are really supportive because she has such a vast connection to our community. She's really up in the opinion of our community. And Chase has been exceptional at keeping me motivated and understanding because it's grueling going to court and doing this year after year and still being in supervised visitation and him still not answering the phone even though there's court orders for them and him doing whatever he wants. Chase has really been very stoic in keeping me going and making sure that we keep the fight.
Well, I hope that you can regain 50% custody. I hope that you make.
Well, I'm sure you'll hear about it.
I hope that you, at some point, your kids have two healthy parents that maybe get other partners, that maybe if he got another partner that's lovely to you and lovely to your kids, like maybe there's a future of that.
Mm-hmm.
In the process, it's an incredible story of what happened, media fascination, being the pretty blonde girl that went missing, where people say the pretty blondes get way more attention, than women of color and children of color and all of that. And then the world turning, like, let's burn her to the stake kind of a situation. And then going through like 6 years of laying in bed at night and being like, am I ever going to, I don't even know how, the stress that you must have felt all those years, knowing that you were keeping this lie.
Mm-hmm.
And did you ever fear that James would come and try to get you again or try to contact you again?
I still do. I mean, the day that the documentary came out was a really hard day.
Mm-hmm.
It's still hard. It's like I've suffered from PTSD for so long and it's like all flooding back. My sleep has not been the same since the doc has come out because now it's all out. And it's not just James, it's Keith too. And it's what's going to happen when I regain my kids and he starts to lose. Then it gets really dangerous.
How old are your children now?
Preteens.
Okay. Well, um, you know, once they're 13, don't they have a real say?
It's case to case.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pray for you.
Thank you.
I think you are a very good mom, and I think kids need to be with both parents and need to know both parents, and I don't
I
think
just don't
people
think he's
benefit.
thought of that. I
Yeah.
don't think he's considered because he's tried so hard to just annihilate me. I don't think he thought about me not giving up.
Yeah.
I think he just thought that that Hulu doc was going to make me run away and give up on the kids. And I don't think he spent so many years trying to break me down and break me and make me feel like I was nothing without him. I don't think he counted on that I was stronger without him and that I
Yeah.
can endure without him. And I think that he thought that I was just going to run for the hills, and I'm not. My kids are far more important to me, and I love them way more than I dislike him. And I don't think he's thought about what it's going to be like when I get them back and have to sit next to him at assemblies and basketball games, because
You don't have to sit next to him.
I'm putting
You
in
can, you
all
can
the work.
sit on the other side, and
Right.
you can sit 3 rows back.
Right, but we're going to
But
have
you're
to
going to
co-parent.
yes, you're going to have to co-parent.
And he's caused so much destruction,
Yeah.
not just for me, but with the kids. And we
Yeah.
have one parent that's trying and it's putting in all the work and doing all the right things for the kids. And you have another parent who just really isn't. So I don't think he's ever considered that he's going to lose anything.
Well, you're never going to give up,
Never.
and they're going to realize it, hopefully, while they're still young and you can parent them, but they always get it. They always get it.
And
I mean,
time with my kids when they've reached mature adulthood is going to be longer
yeah.
than the time that they're littles. And
Yeah.
they probably know far more than we understand.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. The book is Sherri Papini Doesn't Exist, and buy it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to start reading it tonight. And where can they get it?
You can get it at sherrypapinibook.com, or you can purchase it on Amazon. On Amazon, there are a few books, exploitative pieces, where people have written books about me. This is written by me.
So just make sure that you get that one and not one of the others, or buy them all. And then, I don't know, go deeper than I've gone.
Don't give them your money.
Don't give them their money.
They're exploiting me.
But get this one.
Sherrypapinibook.com are the most reliable links.
Yes.
But you can also find Sherri Papini Doesn't Exist on Amazon as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You answered
really.
so many questions, and I hope you enjoyed your time here.
Yeah.
Sorry to make you cry a few times.
Okay.
Thank you.